BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's Anna Hill here with Farming Today podcast, where the British egg industry is warning food manufacturers about a rise in imported eggs which might fail to meet industry safety standards.
There should not be any cases of salmonella coming from imported eggs. Unfortunately, there still is, which means that those eggs aren't being produced to the same standards that eggs produced in the UK are.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, this week we're focusing on harvest, with combines rolling and arable farmers gathering in the culmination of a year's worth of work. Oil from rapeseed is used in margarine, edible spreads, biodiesel and animal feed. You can't miss it when it's flowering, with acres of bright yellow covering the fields. But harvesting oilseed rape, or OSR, can be difficult because the pods, which contain very small seeds, can shatter before harvest. Many farmers apply a sealant which glues the pods shut, but that in itself can be problematic because large sprayers and their wheels crush some of the very crop farmers are trying to protect. So now drones have been used to spread the sealant. And you may remember we reported the first application in East Yorkshire earlier this summer. Well, Sarah Falkingham has been back to see the harvest.
I've come up to the southern edge of the Yorkshire Wolds, very high exposed area. There's wind turbines all around me, and because of these windy conditions it's quite difficult to grow oilseed rape here. And I'm on a field where back in June we came to see a trial of a pod sealant being applied via a drone, and I'm going to head up into the cab now to speak to the farmer Andrew Manfield, who's currently in the combine cab. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Sarah.
Up and early on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely, going to get this valuable crop in. We're in a very exposed position here. We can see Bridlington Lighthouse in one direction and York Minster in the other, so that gives you an idea of how exposed we are. And so the crop's very vulnerable to wind damage when it gets to this very ripe stage. And so we put a pod sealant on to just try and minimise wind damage and seed loss.
So just explain what's going on here at the moment. The ripe pods are going through the combine header here. You haven't cut this like some farmers do, they swath it to get it to dry in the pod, or some even spray it off. Yours is just standing, isn't it?
Yeah, so this year, because of the high temperatures, the amount of sunshine we've had, we've been able to let it ripen naturally, and this is where the drone has the potential to be a huge boon for us, because the fact that we can apply the pod sealant by the drone without running through the crop at all would remove the need to go through the crop with the high clearance sprayer later in the season. We'd remove that need altogether.
I can see in front of me you've got a really good example of this. You've got on the left a strip where the drone went over, and it's tall, standing proud, probably 7 foot high, and I can see next to it is where a sprayer went over, slightly flattened it, crushed it where the wheels were. Yes. And it's about 3 foot high.
We've essentially lost crop there.
You said back in June it was about, you think you lose about 10% in wheelings crushed under the sprayer?
Yeah, you know, we have a state-of-the-art high clearance machine, but even so, the crop is so large and knitted over that you just press quite a lot of crop down under the wheels, and that is unavoidable.
What do you think that 10% is worth? Have you worked out what 10% of whatever it is a tonne?
We have a weighbridge, and this crop we believe is doing just over 2 tonnes to the acre. We might get, with bonuses, £500 a tonne for this crop, and that's quite a loss if you lose 10% of that.
So it's thousands over.
Yeah, no, it does add up, absolutely, yeah. And you know, if we can possibly avoid using the big spraying machine, you know, it's expensive to run. And if we can stay out of any crop now with a machine like that, we do.
And we talk about reducing food waste, but this is actually reducing food waste in the field before we're even getting to the factory, getting to the dinner plate.
Absolutely. The most efficient crops are the ones that are maximised, because you're using all those resources that you put into every crop, you're using them to the maximum.
And how do you rate this year then as a year for growing oilseed rape?
I would say one for the ages, to be honest. You know, we've had a lot of sunlight, the crop was well established in autumn, we're very, very happy. I would go so far as to say, in terms of combinables, it looks like big crop of the year. So we're just pleased that we can absolutely make the most of it and get it in.
Andrew Manfield in East Yorkshire with Sarah Falkingham. One area of food production which has historically been challenged by imports is plums. Back in 1987, the UK produced 29,000 tonnes of plums, but that fell to just 2,500 tonnes by 2008, and imports of the fruit grew to replace domestic production. But now there's some good news. This year there's a bumper crop of homegrown fruit, and growers believe the tide is turning, following investment in new orchards and new technology for irrigation and soil management. James Miller is Commercial Director of Maidstone fruit grower WB Chambers.
It used to be a very, very popular product, a lot of acres grown in the 1960s, and it's dwindled since then.
What's changed now?
Well, there's more investment going into it. We're historically a berry farm, focusing on raspberries really, but there are certain requirements for berry growing, which we use polytunnels, and particularly in our area there's lots of restrictions that enable you to put the polytunnels into place. Plums doesn't have the polytunnels, so we can quite quickly, or easily if you like, grow a crop that doesn't have the same level of restrictions that, say, berries does. There's still quite a demand for it. The market is quite high in the UK. We do consume quite a lot of plums throughout the year. We've seen a gap, if you like, and taken these new varieties to extend our growing season for as long as possible, and to deliver the quality that we hopefully get consumers to keep buying them.
What new varieties have you got?
Last week we started to harvest Opal variety. This week we're harvesting Jubileum variety, and we'll run all the way through with the likes of Top Hit and Top Taste and Top End as some of the newer ones.
And what are they like? Do they look like Victoria? Are they pink and red, or...?
Yes, generally plums with the purple coloration is what people are looking for. So yeah, we're looking for size and also timing of when the fruit's going to be ripened. Our season is about 10 to 12 weeks now. We still grow a lot of Victoria variety, which is the classic, but we've extended with those early varieties, and we've got quite high level of technology in our cooling and storage facilities to be able to extend that season a little longer. We've got the season coming up to about 10 or 12 weeks now in Kent, when historically it would have been, we all know, the classic Victoria variety of plum, which probably cropped over a 3-week period. So we've already made strides to extend that window, and the longer we're on the shelf, the more the customer gets the chance to purchase a British plum.
James Miller from WB Chambers. And imports are concerning another food sector, eggs. Food businesses are being warned that there's been a rise in imported eggs and egg products, which the British Egg Industry Council, the BEIC, believes could be of lower quality than home-produced eggs. 12% of shell eggs and egg products, often used in catering, are imported. Most come from Europe. They're supposed to meet sanitary and phytosanitary, or SPS, standards, but the BEIC believes some products are slipping through the usual checks at the border. 90% of British-produced shell eggs carry the lion stamp mark, which means the hens that produce them are vaccinated against salmonella. For this programme, I visited a hatchery for laying hens a couple of years ago and watched day-old chicks receiving their vaccinations. Well, Martin Williams is chair of the BEIC, and he told me why they're concerned about the current levels of imports.
By and large, the quality in terms of food safety of the eggs coming into this country, particularly from certain countries, is not what British Lion eggs are. It's not eggs which are sold in major retailers, because the major retailers all support the Lion Quality Scheme, which is the safest eggs anywhere in the world. But it's eggs which are coming into, shall we say, the more price-sensitive markets, wholesale, and maybe sold in smaller shops in big cities and the likes, but also used by certain food service companies, certain caterers, etc.
What evidence do you have that imported eggs are more risky than eggs that have the Lion brand?
Well, we are aware that there have been multiple cases of salmonella in humans in other EU countries, and don't really particularly wish to put the blame on one country, but there was one EU member state exporting eggs to this country which actually caused the salmonella outbreak in this country last year. So, as I say, we're not concerned at shell eggs being sold at retail because consumers can be rest assured they are getting eggs with the little lion on. But it is in those price-sensitive markets whereby the provenance of the eggs may not be so clear that we're concerned about.
Surely they have to follow sanitary and phytosanitary rules, don't they?
Eggs coming from the EU, we have the same legislation as the EU because we retained egg marketing legislation. There should not be any cases of salmonella coming from imported eggs. Unfortunately, there still is, which means that those eggs aren't being produced to the same standards that eggs produced in the UK are.
They do have to be checked, though, don't they, at the border, because they are medium risk?
Well, I think we would like all eggs and egg products checked at the border, but that simply isn't happening due to resource. So we would like to see those checks taking place. They're not, and in our view, they should be.
What is stopping the UK from producing 100% of its own domestic egg production?
Well, there are a number of reasons. Our standards of food safety, hen welfare and environmental protection are really the tops. And some of the countries, particularly countries outside Europe, do not have to comply with the same standards. But what we're seeing and have been seeing over the last few years is actually if I was to put a planning application in, for example, a new free-range unit, I would have real difficulty. So we have a planning system at the moment which isn't acting in favour of expanding our home-produced eggs and egg products.
How can consumers tell where the egg in something they're buying has come from?
At retail level, very clear. Consumers can see the little red lion on the eggshell as well as the box. Food service sector as well. If they're buying lion eggs, the little lion logo will be on the shell. Of course, when eggs are broken and processed into a variety of products, provenance is lost, apart from the sort of the paper trail that goes with that. And so what we really want to see is better labelling on imported egg products coming into the UK.
You're linking British lion standards and eggs with food safety, but you're implying that imports don't meet those standards. Are you saying that just to protect your market?
Not at all. What consumers want in this country, consumers get. And we have the largest number of free-range hens anywhere in the world. So we're quite happy to compete with anybody in the world as long as that competition is fair. What we're trying to do in terms of raising our concern about the food safety aspects of eggs is to make sure that British consumers are making sure that the eggs and the egg products they buy are safe. And that is vitally important in our view.
Mark Williams, chair of the British Egg Industry Council, a DEFRA spokesperson, told us this government will never waver in its duty to support the UK's biosecurity and preserve our food supply. Our import controls protect our food supply chain from pests and disease that can be brought in on imported goods, while ensuring we minimise any disruption to trade. That's all from us today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.